Cold open, on October 30, 1938, as the shadows lengthened across the American East Coast. An ordinary radio broadcast plunged an entire nation into a waking nightmare. Orson Welles, with his Mercury Theater on the air, began a dramatized adaptation of H.G. Wells' classic, The War of the Worlds. What began as a fictional tale of Martian invasion quickly spiraled into mass hysteria. Listeners, tuning in late, missed the opening disclaimer. They heard frantic news bulletins interrupting dance music, reporting strange explosions on Mars, then alien spacecraft landing in New Jersey, unleashing terrifying heat rays. Thousands fled their homes, roads clogged with panicked families, eyes scanning the darkening skies for alien tripods. People gathered in churches, praying for salvation. Some even prepared for chemical warfare, convinced their end was nigh. All of this, born from a radio play. The Martians were not real, yet the fear they invoked was utterly, terrifyingly authentic. It dictated actions, shattered composure, and eroded rational thought. This wasn't just a story. It was a profound demonstration of how deeply fear can seize control, turning fiction into a devastating, lived reality. Introduction: fear. It's an ancient, primal force, woven into the very fabric of our being. From the first flicker of life, it has been the sentinel, the alarm, the invisible architect of survival. Without it, our ancestors would have fallen prey to predators, our species would have vanished into the primordial mists. It is a biological imperative, etched into our DNA, a guardian against the perils of existence. Yet, in our modern world, where saber-toothed tigers are no longer a daily threat, fear persists. It mutates, adapts, finding new forms, new pathways to infiltrate our minds and govern our lives. But what exactly is this powerful emotion? Is it merely a reflex, a jolt of adrenaline, or something far more intricate? How does a perceived threat, whether real or imagined, translate into the tremors in our hands, the racing of our hearts, the sudden paralysis that grips us? And, crucially, how does this internal storm translate into the decisions we make, the paths we choose, and the very trajectory of our lives? From the individual choices we navigate daily to the grand narratives of nations, fear exerts an undeniable, often unseen, influence. This documentary embarks on a journey into the dark heart of fear, to dissect its psychological mechanisms, to understand its biological roots, and to expose the profound ways it manipulates our perceptions and dictates our destinies. We will explore how this ancient alarm system, designed to protect us, can paradoxically become a cage, limiting our potential, fostering prejudice, and even driving collective irrationality. By peeling back the layers of dread, we aim to illuminate the architecture of this potent emotion, revealing how it shapes our reality and, ultimately, controls our decisions. It is a story not just about what we fear, but about what fear does to us. Main content: our exploration begins deep within the most ancient parts of the human brain, in a structure often referred to as the brain's fear center. Concept 1. The amygdala, the brain's ancient alarm bell. Imagine, for a moment, an unexpected, sudden flash of movement in your peripheral vision, followed by a guttural hiss. Before your conscious mind can even register the image, your heart races, your muscles tense, a jolt of adrenaline surges through your veins. This instantaneous, visceral reaction is orchestrated by a remarkable, almond-shaped cluster of neurons nestled deep within your temporal lobe, the amygdala. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux, through decades of pioneering research starting in the 1980s and detailed in works like his 1996 book, The Emotional Brain, unveiled the amygdala's critical role in processing and remembering emotional reactions, particularly fear. He identified two distinct neural pathways that carry sensory information to the amygdala. The first is the low road, a rapid, crude pathway directly from the sensory thalamus to the amygdala. This route is incredibly fast, bypassing the cortical processing centers responsible for detailed analysis. It's a shortcut, designed for immediate action. If that flash of movement is a snake, the low road ensures you jump back before you've even fully identified it as a snake. It's a better safe than sorry mechanism, prioritizing speed over accuracy, a primal legacy from our evolutionary past when a split second could mean the difference between life and death. The second pathway is the high road. This route is longer, more circuitous, sending sensory information from the thalamus to the sensory cortex for detailed analysis, and then to the hippocampus for memory consolidation, before finally reaching the amygdala. This high road allows for a more nuanced and accurate appraisal of the threat. It's how you realize that snake was actually a garden hose, or that guttural hiss was just the cat. The high road allows the prefrontal cortex, our center for executive function and rational thought, to modulate or even override the amygdala's initial alarm. But this processing takes time, precious milliseconds that the low road bypasses entirely. When the amygdala is activated, whether by the low or high road, it triggers a cascading physiological response known as the fight or flight or freeze mechanism. This intricate symphony of bodily changes prepares us for immediate action. The adrenal glands flood the body with adrenaline and cortisol, stress hormones that provide a surge of energy. Heart rate and blood pressure soar, delivering oxygenated blood to major muscle groups, preparing them for exertion. Pupils dilate, sharpening vision for potential threats. Digestion slows, non-essential functions are put on hold, all resources diverted to survival. Even blood coagulation increases, a preemptive measure against potential injury. This entire process, though often uncomfortable, is a testament to millions of years of evolution, a finely tuned system designed to keep us alive. Consider a real-life example: the unexpected near miss on the highway. You're driving, perhaps lost in thought, when suddenly, a car swerves into your lane. Before you consciously register the make or model of the vehicle, before you even utter a word, your foot slams on the brake. Your hands grip the steering wheel, your heart pounds against your ribs, and a wave of heat washes over you. This isn't a conscious decision. It's a primal, lightning-fast reaction orchestrated by your amygdala via the low road. The immediate threat bypasses rational deliberation, triggering an automatic physiological and behavioral response that prioritizes your immediate safety. Only after the danger has passed, and your prefrontal cortex has had time to process the event, do you begin to consciously replay what happened, perhaps trembling as the adrenaline slowly subsides. In that critical moment, the amygdala, the brain's ancient alarm bell, took charge, overriding all other functions to ensure your survival. The decisions made, the braking, the swerving, were not products of deliberation, but of instinctual dread. The implications of this automatic system are profound. It explains why phobias can be so debilitating, why panic attacks can feel utterly overwhelming, and why logical reasoning often falters under extreme stress. Our primal fear system, while essential for survival, can sometimes misfire in the complexities of modern life, interpreting non-lethal situations as existential threats. Understanding the amygdala's role is the crucial first step in comprehending how fear establishes its control, often beneath the threshold of our conscious awareness. It is the foundation upon which all other layers of fear-driven decision-making are built. Concept 2. Cognitive appraisal, when thought meets terror. While the amygdala provides the raw, rapid emotional surge of fear, it is our cognitive appraisal that truly shapes our subjective experience and subsequent behavioral response. The same objective event can evoke vastly different fear responses in different individuals, or even in the same individual at different times. This divergence is explained by cognitive appraisal theory, a framework extensively developed by psychologist Richard Lazarus and his colleagues, notably described in Stress, Appraisal, and Coping, Lazarus and Folkman, 1984. Lazarus proposed that emotions, including fear, are not simply direct reactions to external stimuli, but rather products of our interpretation of those stimuli. This interpretive process involves a series of appraisals. The first is primary appraisal. Is this situation relevant to me? And if so, is it a threat, a challenge, or benign? A threat appraisal occurs when we perceive a potential for harm or loss. A challenge appraisal sees potential for growth or gain, even if it involves effort or risk. A benign appraisal means the situation is irrelevant or positive. If a situation is appraised as a threat, we then move to secondary appraisal. Do I have the resources and coping mechanisms to deal with this threat? This involves evaluating our capabilities, past experiences, and available support. Do I have what it takes to overcome this, or am I powerless? The outcome of this secondary appraisal profoundly influences the intensity and nature of our fear response. If we perceive ourselves as having ample resources, the fear might be mitigated or even transform into a challenge. If we feel utterly helpless, the fear can become overwhelming, leading to feelings of anxiety, despair, or panic. Finally, there's reappraisal, a continuous process where we re-evaluate the situation and our coping resources as new information becomes available or as the context changes. This dynamic process means our emotional state is not fixed but constantly evolving based on our ongoing interpretations. Consider the act of public speaking. For some, it is a terrifying ordeal, invoking trembling hands, a racing heart, and a dry mouth, classic physiological signs of fear. They might appraise it as a significant threat to their self-esteem, fearing judgment, embarrassment, or failure. Their secondary appraisal might conclude they lack the skills or confidence to perform well, leading to intense anxiety and potentially avoidance. For others, public speaking is an exhilarating challenge. They appraise it as an opportunity to share knowledge, influence an audience, or hone their communication skills. Their secondary appraisal might acknowledge the difficulty but affirm their competence, leading to excitement and heightened focus rather than debilitating fear. The objective situation, standing before an audience, is identical, but the subjective appraisal dictates the emotional response and, crucially, the decisions made, to embrace the opportunity or to avoid it at all costs. Another compelling example arises in the realm of economics: financial market panics. In 2008, during the global financial crisis, news of bank failures and credit freezes led to widespread fear among investors. For many, this information triggered a primary appraisal of extreme threat, the potential loss of their life savings. Their secondary appraisal, perhaps viewing the situation as uncontrollable and their personal resources as insufficient against a global catastrophe, led to panicked decisions to sell off assets, contributing to a further downward spiral in the markets. Even fundamentally sound companies saw their stock prices plummet, not due to inherent weakness, but due to a collective, fear-driven cognitive appraisal. Yet, a small segment of investors, perhaps those with a different risk tolerance or a long-term perspective, might have appraised the crisis as a unique challenge, an opportunity to buy undervalued assets. Their secondary appraisal would affirm their resources and knowledge, leading to decisions directly opposite to the panicked masses. The same financial data, the same market conditions, yet radically different interpretations leading to profoundly different financial decisions. Cognitive appraisal highlights the extraordinary power of perception. It demonstrates that our fear is not merely an automatic reaction to an external event, but a deeply personal construction, filtered through our beliefs, experiences, and perceived capabilities. This understanding is critical because it suggests that by consciously working to reappraise situations, by challenging our initial threat assessments and bolstering our sense of coping efficacy, we can fundamentally alter our emotional landscape and, in turn, regain control over the decisions fear might otherwise dictate. It's the bridge between raw, primal terror and the conscious thought that can either amplify or diminish its power. Concept 3. Fear conditioning and generalization. Learning to dread. If the amygdala provides the hardware for fear, and cognitive appraisal the software for interpreting it, then fear conditioning is the process by which we program that software, learning to associate neutral stimuli with danger. This powerful mechanism, rooted in classical conditioning discovered by Ivan Pavlov, explains how fears are acquired, maintained, and how they can stubbornly persist even in the absence of an actual threat. The seminal work of John B. Watson and Rosalie Rayner in 1920, with their controversial Little Albert experiment, provided an early, stark demonstration of fear conditioning in humans. Initially, Albert showed no fear of a white rat. However, by repeatedly pairing the presentation of the rat, a neutral stimulus, NS, with a loud, startling noise, an unconditioned stimulus, UCS, which naturally elicited an unconditioned response, UCR, of fear and crying, Albert quickly learned to associate the rat with the frightening sound. Soon, the sight of the white rat alone became a conditioned stimulus, CS, reliably triggering a conditioned response, CR, of fear and distress, even without the loud noise. The power of fear conditioning extends beyond the specific, original stimulus through a phenomenon called generalization. Little Albert didn't just fear the white rat. He also began to show fear towards other furry white objects, like rabbits, a white dog, and even a Santa Claus mask. His fear generalized from the specific conditioned stimulus to similar stimuli, demonstrating how a single traumatic experience can cast a wide net of dread, causing us to perceive danger where none truly exists. Once a fear is conditioned, it can be remarkably persistent. While fear can theoretically undergo extinction, where the conditioned stimulus is repeatedly presented without the unconditioned stimulus, leading to a weakening of the conditioned response. This process is often slow and prone to spontaneous recovery, where the fear response suddenly reappears after a period of extinction. This resilience of conditioned fear speaks to its evolutionary importance. It's safer for our brains to err on the side of caution, remembering past dangers, even if they no longer pose an immediate threat. This mechanism has profound implications for understanding anxiety disorders and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Consider a person who develops acrophobia, an intense fear of heights, after a traumatic fall. The fall itself, UCS, produced overwhelming pain and terror, UCR. The specific height, the sensation of falling, NS, became associated with this terror, turning heights into a CS. Over time, this fear might generalize. A simple ladder, a tall building seen from afar, flying in an airplane, or even a photograph of a mountain range. All might trigger the conditioned fear response, despite not posing any immediate danger of a fall. The individual might then make decisions to avoid these stimuli, limiting their life experiences, solely driven by a learned, conditioned fear. For veterans with PTSD, fear conditioning and generalization are particularly devastating. A soldier exposed to an improvised explosive device, IED, in a combat zone experiences the explosion, UCS, and the resulting trauma, UCR. Later, back home, the seemingly innocuous
Pacific.